On Christmas Day, my mother held up her glass and declared, "Your bonus? 70% is for your sister. The remaining 30% covers my heating." We all decided this. My sister gave a sly smile. My aunt murmured, "Just desserts." Folding my napkin, I stated, "Acknowledged," then executed 3 discreet actions. Weeks passed, then they called, wondering why the payment method failed. Have you ever sat at a Christmas dinner, surrounded by family, only to have your entire world shatter when they reveal you're not loved, you're just funding? I sure did. And what happened next will make you question everything you thought you knew about loyalty and the price of silence. Story: It was Christmas Eve. The dining table glowed, adorned with candlelight and the fancy china we only ever saw when my hard-earned money made it possible. Mom had roasted the turkey to perfection. Aunt Lenora brought her legendary sweet potato casserole. And my sister, Ashley? She waltzed in with a brand new, expensive coat, a coat I knew she couldn't afford on her own. You see, a 5-figure bonus had hit my account that morning. A bonus I busted my butt for, sacrificing years to earn. My boss shook my hand, telling me I'd outperformed every forecast. I was proud. Until dinner. Glasses clinked. My mom stood up, her smile that practiced, saccharine mask she wore right before delivering bad news wrapped in sentiment. "Let's raise a toast," she announced. "To family, to teamwork, to sharing blessings." We've all agreed. We've all agreed. I didn't even know who we was. Then came the gut punch. 70% of your bonus will go to help Ashley pay off her debt, she declared. A dramatic pause. And the remaining 30% will cover our heating bill for the winter. I stared at her, my fork halfway to my mouth, frozen. My sister didn't even pretend to be surprised. She just smirked, a little knowing tilt of her head, sipping her wine like she'd just won a poker game. Aunt Lenora, who was sitting right next to me, leaned in and whispered, "It's only fair, sweetheart. You're doing so well." Only fair? My blood ran cold. I folded my napkin slowly. My hands didn't shake. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just looked at them, at their expectant faces, and said one word. Just one. Understood. Then I made 3 quiet moves. I stood up, kissed my mother on the cheek, poured the rest of my wine into the poinsettia plant, and walked straight to the guest bedroom. 10 minutes later, I was gone. They didn't even realize I'd taken the credit card with me. Let me rewind a little, because this wasn't some sudden explosion. This was a slow burn, years in the making. I didn't grow up rich. We were lower middle class in a town that loved to pretend it was better off than it was. My dad left when I was 10, and Mom pivoted instantly from loving housewife to martyr of the decade. Every bill she paid, every dinner she made became a talking point, a subtle jab. The moment I turned 16 and got my first part-time job scooping ice cream for $7.50 an hour, I became the family's little breadwinner. Ashley, though, she was the sensitive one. That was Mom's go-to excuse for everything. Sensitive meant she couldn't handle pressure, couldn't work retail, couldn't study too hard, couldn't be told no without spiraling. So, I was the one who got the scholarships, juggled 2 part-time jobs, and worked my way through college with 0 help, while Ashley took a break to focus on her mental health. That break lasted 6 years. She never worked more than a few weeks at a time. And every time I dared to suggest she try something, Mom's response was automatic. "You know, she's fragile." Meanwhile, I was burning out. My 20s were a blur of spreadsheets, double shifts, and skipped birthdays. I paid off Mom's car loan when the engine died. I paid Ashley's rent more times than I can count. I even co-signed her second attempt at community college, which she dropped out of 2 weeks later. Each time I tried to set a boundary, the guilt machine clicked into high gear. "You're the stable one," Mom would sigh. "It's not fair to punish her for not being like you." No, it wasn't fair. It wasn't fair that when I got promoted, nobody asked how I felt, only how much the raise was. It wasn't fair that when Ashley overdrew her bank account and needed groceries, Mom would send me tearful voicemails. "Just this once, honey, think of your sister. She's really trying." Trying. I'd watch Ashley lying on her old couch, scrolling through influencer reels, while I forwarded money I could have used for my own down payment. But I said nothing. I swallowed it. I was raised to believe that speaking up made me the problem. The worst part wasn't the money. It was the insidious narrative that I owed them. Every act of support transformed into an obligation. 3 years ago, I got my first real bonus. $5,000. I treated myself to a weekend away in the mountains, my first vacation in years. When I got back, Ashley was crying on Mom's porch. She'd missed rent again. Mom didn't ask if I could help. She just handed me the overdue notice like a waitress dropping off a check. That was the moment. That was when I started tracking it all. Every transfer, every Venmo, every loan, every just this once bill I paid. I kept a private document titled What I Gave. This past fall, it passed $40,000. And still, when Ashley bought a new iPhone on Black Friday, calling it self-care, Mom defended her. She deserves something nice. You wouldn't understand. No, I wouldn't. Because I'd never felt entitled to someone else's money. I worked. I budgeted. I said no to things. That was my sin. I knew how to function. And for that, I was expected to bankroll those who didn't. Then came Christmas Eve. The moment that toast happened. When Mom spoke with that smug finality. When Ashley smiled like she'd just won the lottery. When Aunt Lenora had the sheer gall to whisper, "It's only fair," I realized something profoundly chilling. They'd stopped seeing me as a person. I was an ATM, a bonus, a salary with a pulse. That's why they didn't ask. That's why nobody even looked at me when Mom made the announcement. They assumed I'd nod along, smile, pay up, because I always did. But not this time. Not after what I'd learned the week before. See, I got a call from an old coworker. "Hey," she said casually, "is your sister applying for that wellness grant at our nonprofit?" "What grant?" I was confused. "The hardship grant. She listed you as her financial support. Said she's your dependent and that your family situation has been draining you emotionally. Said you're on the edge of a breakdown." My blood ran cold as she continued. She gave some really personal details. I asked for a copy of the application. And there it was, printed out, staring at me in black and white. Ashley had used my name, my job title, and even quoted texts I'd sent her completely out of context to paint herself as a victim in need of a $7,500 emergency award. She claimed I was emotionally unstable and abusive. She claimed Mom had enabled an unhealthy dynamic of financial dependence. I sat with that PDF for hours, rereading every single lie, every manipulation. That was the night I decided. No more. And Christmas dinner? That was just the final confirmation I needed. So, I made those 3 quiet moves. Not dramatic. Not loud. But they were irreversible. 2 weeks passed. No one called to thank me. No one asked how I felt. No one even checked in. They just kept using the card, like always. Groceries. Ashley's favorite overpriced skincare. A surprise treat yourself. Brunch for her and her friends that ran $212. They thought I'd fold. I'd come crawling back. But the silence was my answer. I let them run wild with my money one last time. And then it happened. It was a Thursday night when my phone rang. Mom's number. "Sweetheart," she said, her voice tight. "The card isn't working." I clicked open my banking app. Strange. In the background, Ashley was screaming. My card declined at the pharmacy. Mom barked into the phone. She needed her medication. "You said the card was good through next year." I muted the line. I needed a second to breathe, to stop myself from laughing. Then, I unmuted. I canceled it. Silence. "Excuse me." Mom's voice rose an octave, disbelief warring with anger. "What do you mean, canceled it?" "I mean I closed the account. Froze all the authorized users. Took back my name, my funds, my peace." "What is wrong with you?" she snapped. "You knew we needed that money. You knew Ashley has payments." "Do I?" I replied, my voice disturbingly calm. "Because last time I checked, Ashley was applying for wellness grants, claiming I was mentally unstable and financially, emotionally overwhelming." Silence again. Long cold. "How did you?" "I have a copy of the application," I cut in, including the quote she lifted from my text about needing therapy, "because I'm tired of being the family ATM. She told your nonprofit friends I was unstable and emotionally pressuring for $7,500. That's not." "She didn't." "She did," I finished. "And you raised your glass to it at Christmas dinner." I heard a muffled sob. Could have been Mom. Could have been Ashley. Didn't matter. I wasn't done. "You didn't ask me," I said, my voice finally rising, a tidal wave of anger I'd suppressed for years. "You didn't ask, Mom. You announced it like I was a human piggy bank. And you all thought I'd nod. You all did. You're overreacting." Ashley's voice shrieked from the background. "No," I said. "I'm finally reacting." That weekend, I drove over with a banker's box. Mom opened the door, wearing slippers, her eyes puffy and red. "What's this?" she croaked. "Receipts," I said, placing the box on the table with a thud. "Every transaction from the last 5 years. Every rent payment. Every cosign. Every grocery run. Every overdraft fee I covered for Ashley." I looked at her. $43,722. Ashley came downstairs in a hoodie, glaring. "Are you trying to humiliate me?" "No," I said, pulling out a printed copy of the grant application. "You already did that to yourself. This alone could have gotten me flagged for a workplace wellness review. You told strangers I was emotionally unstable and abusive for money." Ashley crossed her arms. "You don't understand what it's like." "Oh, I do." I countered, my voice sharp. "I understand perfectly. You want my money, my labor, my silence. You just don't want me unless I'm useful." Aunt Lenora was there too, trying to butt in. "Don't air this out." "Like what?" I snapped, finally letting the frustration roar. "Like Ashley didn't lie for money? Like my mother didn't offer up my bonus without permission?" Mom sank into a chair, looking defeated. "We were desperate." "No," I said, taking out one last envelope. "I was desperate for years. Desperate for someone to ask if I was okay. Desperate for a thank you. Desperate for a single Christmas where I wasn't reduced to a transaction." I opened the envelope and slid out a check. "Final contribution," I said. $1,000. Use it for heat, or Ashley's prescriptions, or whatever else you deem only fair. But after that, we're done." Ashley scoffed. "You're cutting off your own family over money." "No," I said slowly, looking each of them in the eye. "I'm cutting off my family because they treated me like money." I walked toward the door. Mom followed, tears in her eyes. "You're really doing this?" I turned to face her. "You raised me to believe family means showing up, helping, caring. I did that. I bent over backward for this house, and it broke me." I took a breath. "Now I'm building something else." Ashley shouted something behind me. I didn't hear it. Aunt Lenora tried to guilt me. I didn't listen. I stepped outside, closed the door behind me, and for the first time in a decade, I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. They thought it was just another tantrum, you know? That I'd cool off, slink back, and quietly resume my role as the family's silent financial spine. They didn't even process the depth of what had happened. They were so used to my compliance that they mistook my silence for sulking, not a decision, not a boundary, not war. Until the cold hit. The heating bill went unpaid. Ashley's rent bounced. Mom's groceries were declined at checkout. The pharmacy refused to fill Ashley's prescription until she paid the balance from last month. That's when I started getting messages. Not calls at first, but guilt-laced texts. "Are you okay? I know things got heated. Ashley is under a lot of pressure. You know that." Then came the voicemails. Mom's soft, broken voice on my machine. "Sweetheart, your sister's card isn't working. She's in tears at the pharmacy. I'm using space heaters. We need you." Ashley's tone wasn't broken. It was furious. "You're really punishing us like this? What is wrong with you? You can't just shut everything down. We're your family." I let them shout into the void. I didn't answer a single message. 3 weeks in, a final blow. Ashley tried to tag me in a Facebook post about toxic relatives who play the victim after exploiting your vulnerability. I just laughed, blocked her, and unfriended everyone connected. My social media became a wasteland. And for the first time, that felt safe. But they still didn't stop. Ashley sent a legal notice. A half-baked, desperate attempt to sue me for emotional damages. Accused me of financial abandonment, weaponizing money, and destabilizing the household. I didn't panic. I called a lawyer. We presented everything: screenshots, bank records, the fraudulent grant application where Ashley described me as emotionally erratic and financially coercive, all to secure $7,500 from a wellness nonprofit. I even had messages where she bragged about finally getting free cash for once. The judge dismissed it in 10 minutes flat. But I wasn't done, because just when I thought I had seen the absolute worst, there was a knock at my door. Not Ashley. Not Mom. It was my father. The one who left us when I was 10. The one who never called, never wrote, and showed up once for Ashley's high school graduation with a weak apology and a Target gift card. Now he stood there, coffee in one hand, a file folder in the other. "You got a minute?" he asked. I stared, then nodded. He sat on my couch, glanced around. "You did all right for yourself," he muttered. "Better than I expected." I didn't answer. Then he opened the folder. Inside was a copy of a trust document. My name on it. His signature. A balance. $10,000. You were supposed to get this when you turned 25, he said, his voice flat. I left it for both of you. You and Ashley. Equal shares. He looked up, his gaze heavy. Your mom. She told me you didn't want it. That you were refusing to. Speak to me. My stomach dropped. What? She said you were unstable. Angry. That you told her never to mention me. He paused, taking a sip of coffee. She even said you threatened to call the police if I reached out. I couldn't breathe. She said I was volatile. She lied. He said, his eyes meeting mine. I know. I found out last month. She used her half to pay off Ashley's debts. Credit cards alone. Even paid for some ridiculous Reiki retreat. I sat there, stunned. For years, I believed the distance was mine. That I'd closed the door on my father. That maybe I was broken, vindictive, cold. But now I saw the truth. Mom wanted the narrative that made me the villain. Because villains don't get help. Villains don't deserve inheritances. She told you I was dangerous. He nodded slowly. You weren't the problem, son. You were the threat to her system. And in that moment, I realized I had been fighting shadows for years. I thought I was healing from absence, but I was bleeding from betrayal. I took the folder, closed it gently. I'm sorry, he said. I wasn't much of a father, but I didn't want this. He stood to leave. At the door, he turned back. You were always the strong one, even when you were a kid. I should have seen that. Should have stayed. I just nodded. Me too. The next day, I wrote a statement. It wasn't a reply. It was a declaration. A severance. A final bill. I printed 3 copies. One for Mom, one for Ashley, and one for the nonprofit Ashley had lied to. Each copy included a detailed list of every dollar I'd sent over the last 5 years, totaling over $44,000. Screenshots of text messages where Ashley called me a gullible idiot who will always pay. Proof of the trust fund, my stolen inheritance. And finally, the grant application she'd filled out, with my name dragged through the mud. I included a final paragraph. You do not own me. You do not control me. I am not your safety net, your scapegoat, or your financial plan. From this moment forward, I owe you nothing, and I expect nothing in return. Consider this the last communication you will receive from me. 3 days later, I got a letter in return. Not from Ashley. Not from Mom. From the nonprofit. They had revoked Ashley's grant. They had opened an investigation into fraudulent applications. They apologized profusely. They offered me therapy resources. They said, we believe you. And I broke down crying at my kitchen table, a release I hadn't felt in years. It didn't end there. 2 weeks after that, Aunt Lenora knocked on my door. No makeup, no fur coat, just a wrinkled envelope and red eyes. I didn't know, she said quietly. I swear. I just believed your mom. I always believed her. She handed me the envelope. Inside, a handwritten note. I'm sorry for the dinners, for the whispers, for saying it's only fair when it wasn't. You were never selfish. You were strong. And we were too cowardly to admit it. If you don't forgive me, I understand. But I'm done pretending they're right. I didn't cry. I just hugged her. The first real hug I'd had from a family member in years. Now I live in a small loft with a secondhand bookshelf and a growing record collection. I joined a boxing class. I sleep through the night. I smile without guilt. Ashley still posts passive-aggressive memes. Mom sends emails through burner accounts. I delete them because I finally understand. I wasn't the problem. I was the solution they didn't want. And now I'm the freedom they can't stand. It's strange how quiet life becomes when you stop begging people to hear you. There's no more ringing phone, no more overdraft alerts. No more long, bitter voicemails that start with, we need to talk. The silence is a symphony. I wake up now when I want to. I sip coffee that I bought with my own money, in my own cup, in my own space. There's no tension in the walls. No invisible pressure down on my chest. No sense that someone's going to demand something the second I walk through the door. I moved the spreadsheet into a locked folder, labeled it Exhibit A. I don't need to open it anymore. The numbers don't define me. The years of servitude aren't my legacy. They're the reason I have one now. Ashley hasn't contacted me since the nonprofit pulled her grant. She posted a cryptic story on Instagram about fake allies and people who can't handle your truth. Last I heard, she's back living with Mom, working part-time at a yoga studio, still claiming she's finding herself. I hope she does, but I won't be there when she does. Mom tried once more. Sent a typed letter. Hey, real one, with my name spelled right. No lipstick stains, no perfume. Just ink on paper. I never realized how deeply we failed you, it read. I thought I was doing what mothers do, protecting the vulnerable. But I forgot that you were vulnerable, too. I let you carry us, and then I blamed you when you collapsed. It wasn't an apology. Not fully, but it was more than I'd ever gotten. I didn't respond, because that letter wasn't for me. It was for her. A box she needed to check. A cleanse. Let her cleanse herself. I'm already clean. And as for Dad, he sends postcards now. Just short ones. A photo of a pier. A drawing of a boat. A scribbled, thinking of you. Hope you're still boxing. One time he sent a check for $500 with a note that said, buy something unnecessary. I framed that one, not the money, the note, because for the first time in my life, someone gave without strings, without guilt, without, we all agreed, echoing in the background. Even Aunt Lenora came back around. She invited me to Christmas this year. Said she'd understand if I said no, but wanted me to know that she left Mom's orbit, that she finally saw it, that she missed me, not the role I played. I said maybe next year. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd stayed silent. If I'd let that Christmas toast pass. If I'd smiled, clinked my glass, handed over the money, and swallowed the insult like I always did. Would Ashley have gotten her grant? Would Mom still think she was right? Would I still be suffocating in the role they wrote for me? Maybe, but I didn't. I said, understood. And I made 3 quiet moves that shattered a system built on my silence. That night, I lost a family, but I found peace. And that's the twist no one saw coming. I didn't burn bridges. I just turned off the autopay. Call to action. So, if you're watching this and you're the strong one, the responsible sibling, the reliable child, the quiet paycheck who never says no, please, listen to me. They see your silence as permission. They will over-rely on you. They'll smile while they do it and call it love. Until you stop them. And when you do, when you finally say, no, not anymore, they will call you selfish, cruel, unstable, ungrateful. Let them. Because one day you'll sit at your own table, in your own home, with your own name on the mailbox, and you'll realize something they never wanted you to know. You were never the problem. You were the solution they couldn't control. What about you? Have you ever had a moment where you realized you were being used, and what did you do about it? Tell me your stories in the comments below. I really want to know.